What's going on, champs and chambettes? It's FireMonkey here, and in today's YouTube video, we have to talk about some interesting things going on with the Fortnite Battle Royale Island in Chapter 7 potentially colliding with multiple worlds for Chapter 7 Season 2. So without further ado, I want to give a quick little disclaimer. My apologies if you saw the earlier video. I accidentally uploaded yesterday's video file with today's video information due to the fact that I accidentally recorded the original video in 1080p instead of 4K. With that said, however, let's go ahead and start talking about today's topic, obviously, by telling you guys about some interesting stuff going on the island. As you guys know, the rocket recently actually landed on the island. The visitor from Fortnite OG has actually made his way over here, and that in and of itself is actually a great indicator of, oh, hey, look, we have worlds colliding already. Fortnite OG's mixed reality colliding with the Battle Royale lore, you know, trying to bring back the 7 and all that type of stuff, but it gets even deeper than that, because we're starting to actually get some different rift encounters, or I guess reality rifts on the Fortnite Island. Now, the images you're seeing on screen are thanks to Unreal Hybrid over on Twitter, and there's 3 different ones. So here's the first rift, here is our second reality rift, and then after that we also have our third reality rift, and all of these are in different locations on the map, and they all have some interesting things going on with them. Now, thanks to Blortzen over on Twitter, we have a map that showcases all of the different locations and where those rifts are. You can see one's kind of in like the top area, kind of like in that watery area, Clausy Lodge. We have one over on the left middle and one kind of more towards the bottom right side. So a decent amount of rifts overall, but all show different 0-point shards. Now, if you're unaware of why 0-point shards are an important thing right now, Epic Games has been doing this thing where they're starting to rebuild the 0-point, you know, having the Dark Voyager with the Dark Destroyer or whatever that actual like giant thing in the sky is, that is slowly kind of, you know, just standing above the 0-point that's being rebuilt as the Dark Voyager is grabbing different shards. However, to get some of those shards, you need to go to different realities because not all the 0-point shards are here on the Battle Royale Island. Of course, we also have different stuff going on, such as the fact that the visitor has mentioned that the 7 has always tried protecting the 0-point, but they don't know if they'll be remembered as the good guys or just fools / failures or whatever else, due to how many times the 0-point has been handed off to different enemies here and there, and a lot of the lore honestly just relates to the 0-point, relates to this objective of protecting it out of harm's way, and then it always finding its way back into harm, and the 7's trying to, you know, protect it once again in an endless battle that goes on in countless realities. But what does all that have to do with worlds potentially colliding, other than the fact that, you know, we have the Red Rift and the OG visitor coming to this island? Well, we have to actually talk about some more stuff. Now, firstly, here are some close-ups of all the different Rift images, so you can see the 0-point shards. They all have different locations. We have kind of like an ice planet, we have ourselves an actual, like, deserty planet, or I guess you can call it just like a paradise or something, and then we obviously have like a lighthouse, you know, a beach-type area going on there with 3 different reality shards. But what I think is more important is this video right here for the power hour that goes on in around like 30 minutes from the time I'm recording this video. On its own, doesn't really look like much, you know, it's just like, oh, you know, you got the Order over here doing a special emote or whatever, you know, there's the Bring It On emote, but the more important part is that we see a 0-point reality shard kind of on like an Ice King island. I'm not for sure if that's the exact island that's in Fortnite OG. I think it's more Ice Kingified, so, you know, it might be like Ice King's home planet or something, or an alternative Ice King, but you can see how we have a different 0-point shard there, and it's almost like the Order's kind of like, bring it on, come try taking it off of our hands or whatever, because even in the lore right now in Battle Royale, there's this whole focus on the visitor saying, hey, stop trying to go after the Dark Voyager, stop trying to do all this type of stuff, you know, play it safe or whatever, while the Order's just kind of like, no, I'm gonna do my own thing type of thing, you know? So it's definitely interesting to see all that going on, and it makes me wonder where the story's gonna go in the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start getting a Rift reality type thing, like I think it was like Chapter 2's final season that it happened, maybe it was Season X or something, where we actually ended up getting, you know, the different like Rift POIs that had different areas, like the Suburban Stardew and all that type of stuff, that would actually rift into the Battle Royale map, even though they weren't originally there. I feel like they've actually done that a few times now, but it is something where we've kind of seen this aspect and, you know, this gimmick happen before, so I wouldn't be surprised if they start bringing it back in order to make the lore more intense, you know, being like, hey, you know, in order to get these different 0-point reality shards to this island, instead of rifting away and grabbing them each time, why not rift them to this island to make it easier, you know, spend less time going to other places, just pull it into the main Battle Royale island as the home area where the Dark Voyager is actually going to be rebuilding it, and then of course towards the end of the season, or maybe to the start of the next season, that is when we see the rifting going into effect, and then, you know, while all that is going on, it's just a slow buildup of the Dark Voyager rebuilding the 0-point. But honestly, it definitely sounds like there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in terms of the storyline and different versions of the 7 coming to the game, and I think that's actually a pretty interesting aspect because of the fact that it means certain things like Brie Larson as the Paradigm doesn't have to happen anymore. The Foundation being Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson doesn't have to happen anymore because these are alternative versions. You know, maybe the Foundation wasn't always The Rock in every universe, so that would allow Epic Games to have the perfect opportunity to recast the people that they want to recast, you know, especially if they don't have the licensing or whatever else, you know, the topic or rights or whatever to use certain characters. It gives them an easy way out lore wise, and it could lead to some pretty interesting dynamic changes. Because I remember with the Visitor, for example, a lot of people mentioned that people thought that it was supposed to just be Donald Mustard as the Visitor, and now we have a whole other situation where it's Ben Starr doing the voice. So maybe they went ahead and did that change. Maybe originally it was Donald Mustard, but then they decided, you know what, we want an actual voice actor, and you know, since Mustard doesn't work with the company anymore, let's go ahead and get Ben Starr to do the voice. And I definitely think that was an interesting choice because we're starting to get more and more of those voice acted quests and more lore from the 7 in a very well fleshed out manner. Because, you know, in my personal opinion, when it comes to like Charlie Wynn, even though he's not on social media really, you know, he's tweeted before in the past and everything, but even though he's not like Donald Mustard giving a lot of teasers and hype up and build up on social media, he still is around, right? You know, he still appears to be doing a pretty good job with the story because even though it's kind of slow at times, it has a more coherent goal. Whereas the previous story, even though Donald Mustard had, you know, a nice thing going, I felt was a little bit over the place. You know, one season to be focused on this, the next season to be focused on something completely different. Now, maybe it would tie in towards the end of the chapter or whatever, but here, it seems every single thing that actually gets done kind of ties into the next season or the next chapter. Like the whole Pandora's box thing. That wasn't just like a one season thing like it would have been before. It was something that continued over multiple seasons, leading up to the end of the whole Pandora's box saga, I guess you would call it. So I definitely think there's more stuff going on here that we won't find out about in this specific season, but in the next few seasons leading up towards the end of this chapter, with certain things like, you know, the mini seasons just being little collab seasons in order to, you know, pass time, have a little bit more fun while Epic Games works on other stuff. But it's definitely interesting to see all this going on, and it also makes me wonder, how does stuff like the delays to the battle pass or, you know, delays to all these end dates and stuff, how does that actually affect the lore and everything else they're writing? Does it mean that certain things end up getting dragged on longer than normal because of the fact that, you know, there's a little bit of an extra period that they didn't originally plan for, or was it always the plan to go ahead and give a little bit of delay? Maybe this is a little bit of a tangent, but you know, it is kind of talking about the whole entire like 0-point shard system going on and how it's kind of building up to the future of Battle Royale and all these crazy changes going on and how they're kind of planning to have the worlds collide in a weird way with all the different lore and all, you know, the building blocks they got going on here. And it's definitely something that I feel like we may not find the fruition, you know, the finalized piece of until towards the very end of this chapter, or maybe the start of the next chapter. Until next time, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, and I'll catch you champs and champettes tomorrow with another upload. So until then, peace out.